So welcome to the Data Vault Friday. My name is Michael Olschimke. I'm the CEO of Scalefree. We have the session here every Friday, 11 o'clock Central European Standard Time, to allow you, the audience, to ask questions about Data Vault 2.0, but also cloud computing, any data-driven applications, MPP stuff. That's all good. Yeah, if you want to raise a live question, use the client here, use the chat in the client. You can just use the chat. You can use the Q&A function in the client. You can also raise your hand if you want to get voice. I'll give you voice so you can ask a question live. It's all good. Or I show you after today's session a link to a form where you can essentially type in your question into a form, maybe upload some pictures of a whiteboard or some diagrams, all up to you. And yeah, and we would essentially look at this in one of the next sessions. And if you receive multiple questions, I would be cherry picking. So there's no there's no obligation to answer every question. I prefer questions which are, well, I can only answer questions here which work in a 10-15 minute scenario, right? So don't upload like these super large models which you receive sometimes. If you can't read this on HD, then there's no way I would, well, I might cut this down, right? All right, if there will be no question at all, I will talk about the cluster here, my little side project. But at the moment, we still have a couple of questions. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, shoot them, right? So always fill the pipeline here. All right, good. So let's go for the question of today. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is about CDC. Apparently it gets more and more important, which is good because it's our favorite loading mechanism as well. If we get data, if you can choose between batch and CDC, or let's say near real time, or getting data multiple times a day or something, but more in batch mode, incremental delta, whatever, we always go for CDC essentially if you have a chance. So here, the question is about the CDC flags, the insert, update, delete flag, but also about the timelines, the CDC timeline, for example. How do we deal with this? Do we capture those dates or those attributes? And if we capture them, are we splitting them away into their own satellite? And splitting satellite has some advantage, but also some disadvantage. The advantage of splitting a satellite is that you simplify the model a bit. You don't give all these attributes, these very technical attributes, to end users, right? When even the power user, when they start querying your raw data vault directly, which they will. That's why we secure raw data vault. So you make the model a bit more complicated. But on the other hand, the split also, when you separate these attributes into their own satellite, you have to join them if you need them. Right, that's the challenge. Well, first of all, do you need them? Right, that's the number one question. Do you need those attributes for your typical queries? Because then you would have to join, and that would essentially drive the decision if we would split them off or not. If I know I need them, I might be against that essentially. So here's an example from the book. That's essentially the CDC table from SQL Server, as far as I remember, and so you got lots of technical attributes essentially, and the actual data, the actual changed data essentially, or the current state of data. You get some operation flag. That's essentially insert, update, delete, more or less. The force means update, change, and delete, I believe. So you receive a couple of flags here essentially, very technical, sequence values, some timestamps, and so on. And what we did in the book is essentially we create a status tracking satellite where we attach those attributes to the parent via hash key. Ignore the load end date. You used to have a load end date in the book, so that's not there anymore. And then we captured a flag, DCU, and we essentially turned the operation flag into a status flag. The question is, can you turn the operation flag into a more readable flag? Is it a status change, or is this like a business rule where you change the data, the incoming data, or is it a hard rule essentially, right? Is it a soft rule or hard rule? I wouldn't do that anymore, to be honest. I would keep the data as is in the raw data vault. So that's number one. So I wouldn't really do a status flag and calculate that from the operation flag, even though it's close, but still you have to convert it somehow. You're using some conditional logic, right? So I wouldn't do that anymore, to be honest. That's number one. So the operation flag I would just keep as is in the raw data vault. And if you want to use this and simplify the usage or something, you could turn this into a more readable status flag in the business vault. But so that's number one. What I would do is this: you have some hard facts here, right? Raw data, and there's a business key involved. So I would turn this into essentially a satellite in a raw data vault, attach it to the hash key of this employee ID essentially, and load the data in the exact same manner as we discussed last time when we discussed how we capture CDC data by adjusting the load data timestamp of the record by the sequence inside the CDC package as microseconds. You just add that to the load data timestamp of the record essentially. That's how we capture all these records into a status tracking satellite in a raw data vault. Don't modify it, don't calculate anything, just get that in there. And I would separate this because the way it works is the actual raw data, first and last name, for example, first and last name will be captured by a standard satellite. Well, again, with a modified load date, but that provides you the data. And those flags, if you ever need them, yeah, there might be cases where you need them. Let's say you want to push forward the data to the next system, right? But the typical user doesn't need those attributes, right? Because the data satellite provides them with all the data they need. Yeah, that they have everything essentially. So the only thing you might need is the operation flag. So I know, is this record inserted, update, or is the record deleted in the source? That's the most important piece. We would, on the other hand, separate the deleted flag to its own satellite anyway, to an effectivity satellite. That's number one. So yeah, okay. So here's the answer, straight answer. So separate those attributes into their own satellite, but don't modify anything here. So that's the raw data, capture it. That's it. Attach it to the same hash key, and those attributes you add to a data satellite, which also uses the modified load data timestamp. So far, so I would split this. I would split it because I assume not many people will use this. Well, they will use only one information. That's essentially the status flag here. Because I need to know, is a record deleted or not? And that's easy to retrieve from the CDC data. But I would capture this into an effectivity satellite. And what I would do is I would use a effectivity satellite in the business vault where I calculate based on this data in your raw data vault, is the employee deleted or not? That deleted flag, I calculate based on this data, for example, come up with a date timestamp essentially, and provide that in the business vault essentially. And those are the two satellites people will use. They will use the hub for the employee number. They will use the satellite with the raw data, first and last name from the raw data vault. And they will use the effectivity satellite from the business vault with the deleted flag that you derive from this data essentially. That's what a standard user will do essentially, right? Yeah, if there's a timeline in there, let's say a CDC timeline, you might also want to consider adding that one to the effectivity satellite as well. But it's just a query, it's just a view, honestly, on this satellite here, on this technical satellite. Well, if you turn this into technical satellite. So that's what I would do. Split it off, have two satellites in the raw data vault, one for the CDC data, one for the actual data, the hub, and then in the business vault, you have an effectivity satellite where you derive the load data timestamp and maybe some other CDC timeline into the effectivity satellite per source. That's the basic idea. All right, if you have a question like this, sorry for struggling again, but if you have a question like this, use this form here essentially behind this URL, sfr.ee/dbfriday. That's where you can type in essentially a question, upload maybe some whiteboard pictures or models if you want. Keep them small, right? Make sure they fit on HD, or I can cut it to make it fit essentially. And there's more webinars. We have one webinar on Wescape, one webinar on DBT at the moment. So check out scalefree.to/webinars. That's where you can register for those sessions. They are once a month though, so but still. Yeah, and join the Data Vault Innovators community. Free community forum essentially where you can ask questions, we get answers. We have a monthly session where we also answer questions from the community in a live session. So that's also very interesting, and we offload more and more content to DVIC as well. So yeah, it would be nice to see you there as well. Cool. Thanks for joining today. Hope to see you next Friday, and yeah, enjoy your weekend essentially. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining today. If you'd like to discuss this further, give us a call on the number below here, and we're happy to discuss this with you. See you next time. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.